So before we get too deep into this video, firstly, Wally has returned. Look at him. Adorable. He's simply just laying back there because I just took him to the dog park and he's tired. So, perfect opportunity for him to lay down and chill out, am I right? At least so I can record a video so he doesn't pee on the carpet. Anyway, secondly, I'm going to talk about Mafia the Old Country, but I also finished the story mode on Mafia, so I'm probably going to be talking about a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't beaten the game or you don't want to know anything about spoilers, I would probably just, hop off, maybe come back at a later date, or, just play the game and see if you like it and see if it sits well with you. But yeah, so that was your warning. There's going to be spoilers. Anyway, so I finished Mafia the Old Country about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. I still have it actually sitting right here, just on my desk. But I finished it, and overall, I really enjoyed it. It was really excellent. There was a lot of kind of like betrayal and a lot of backstabbing and just stuff that it did end a certain way, and we'll get to that. I'm not going to start with the ending first, but it did end in a way that I loved but also hated. So there's things about it that I really, really like, and just like the last video I made about Mafia, and there's things that I'm kind of indifferent with, but just starting with a couple of the characters, like the voice acting is impeccable across the board. The Don, Isabella, Enzo, Cesare, Luca, like all the characters, Luca being my favorite, were excellent. Like all of them were portrayed wonderfully, and I felt very enthralled, like playing through the story of that game. This video goes out to you, Sam. I know you're probably watching this right now. Anyway, so the story is really good. There's things about the game that are a bit lackluster, just like kind of I mentioned in the last video, like the stealth sections are a bit lackluster. It does at times, now that I've beaten it, it does kind of feel like, I guess, a bit of a walking simulator in a way, because you are just kind of going from point A to point B in a lot of cases and just kind of watching a cutscene. There are like shooting sections, there are stealth sections sprinkled between those, and there's enough like to keep the momentum going. But you can tell like they definitely like strayed away from like the open world and went straight linear, because there's not really a lot of reason to have a lot of like the gunfights and a lot of just everything that's just going on in like an open world to be happening in a linear game. So a lot of it is kind of dialed back. So you almost have to have that expectation when you're going into it. So you can't just expect it to be like guns blazing and like there's mafiosos at every corner and you're shooting them every time you see them. And it's definitely more slow burn, and it kind of brings you up to that point. But overall, yeah, in terms of characters, it's excellent. I didn't even write like an outline for this video. Usually I have some sort of outline that has some bullet points that I genuinely want to talk about. But in this video, I am not doing that. I am simply just yapping just straight off the dome. But characters were great. Towards the end of the game, this is where we're going to start getting into like heavy spoilers, so I'm just letting you know now. But towards the end of the game, Luca ends up dying. He gets shot during it's like a mafia meeting. It's like our family talking to the rival family, and it's only been a week. I don't even remember the rival family's name. But we go and have a meeting with them. There's a disagreement because they want to basically buy all of the land that we live on, that the Don Teresi's family lives on, and we don't want that because that means we lose everything. And since we denied all of that, there was basically a shootout, and Luca was caught in the crossfire. So Luca ends up dying, and I kind of expected him to die straight from the beginning, just because he's such a good, almost like fatherly character to Enzo, like the entire game. Like he's very heartfelt. He's very straightforward. He's very, he's just a nice dude. Like he's a dude that you want to be on your side. He's a really good guy, but he ends up dying, and it's sad and all that. And while all this is happening, you find out that Enzo and Isabella, the Don's daughter, end up like having a kid together. Or well, she gets pregnant. They don't have the kid yet, but she ends up getting pregnant, and that's a big deal because the Don doesn't want he wants to be able to choose a husband for his daughter, preferably from a rival family, to merge families together, to create a bigger crime empire. You understand. But that's not what happens. Like, so he ends up getting her pregnant. The Don finds out. He ends up getting super pissed off, tries to beat the shit out of me. And he does. At one point, he really does. And he sends your best friend, Cesare, to fight against you. Cesare, he's like, hey, you got to go kill Enzo. And there's basically a boss fight with that. And you end up letting Cesare live because you end up winning, naturally, because we're the best. And then you end up fighting the Don. And then after you fight the Don and you kill the Don, then Cesare shows back up and he expresses like forgiveness, like, hey, we're brothers. I didn't mean this, stuff like that. But then Cesare ends up, while giving you a hug, stabbing you in the back and killing you. So your main character, Enzo, ends up dying at the end. And it sucks because like at the beginning of the game, he was such a underdog and he was such a, like a guy that had no family. He was forced like into what was essentially like slavery at the beginning of the game. And he escaped from it to get into this mafia family. And he was just trying to do better for himself. He ended up getting with the Don's daughter because he really loved her and he wanted to start a family. He wanted to start a family like one that he wanted to create a family that wasn't like the family he came from, which, to be fair, he didn't really know about because he was, from what I understand, mostly just on his own. So basically going through this journey with him from like basically rags to riches and then getting murdered by his friend in a betrayal at the end, that kind of hurt a little bit because I was like, damn, he's the guy you were really rooting for. He's the one that I was really hoping that would pull through. But he ends up dying, and they end up sending, or Isabel ends up getting out. She's still pregnant with Enzo's child. But she ends up getting on a boat, and she goes towards Empire Bay. So Empire Bay is the location of Mafia 2. We don't know like who Enzo's child is. And we also don't know, at least at the time of recording this video, we don't know that there's going to be like a direct sequel to Mafia the Old Country, because she's on her way to Empire Bay. So who is this kid? Is the child somebody? Because the year that this happened is around like 1907, and I think Mafia 1 is, oh man, I could be wrong, but I think it's in the 50s and 60s. So it's like mostly 50s and I think early 60s or something like that. But like, so it almost leads you to believe that maybe Enzo's child might be like the start of some, mafia empire that's in Empire Bay, which is really cool. I mean, I like that idea, but at the same time, like, they leave it very vague. So it's hard to say like who or what is going to end up happening. So because I was really thinking that Mafia the Old Country was going to kind of roll into Mafia the Definitive Edition. I thought they were just going to kind of like smooth straight into each other. And that's not what happened. They're not that at all, because they didn't even go to I don't think it's called Los Angeles. It's like Lost Heaven, I think, in Mafia 1. But they don't go to Lost Heaven at the end of the Old Country. They go to what's essentially New York, Empire Bay. So it has to have something to do with Mafia 2. And there is Mafia 2 locations in the game. I don't know what they're called, but I recognized them when I was there. So it's, I like the connections to Mafia 2. I like that they're kind of acknowledging that Mafia 2 is arguably like the best one in the entire franchise. But I would probably put Mafia the Old Country at a solid, like if Mafia 2 is number 1, like Old Country is a close like number 2. Like it's a toss up between that and Definitive Edition, because it was really good. It doesn't have a lot of like gameplay moments, and it really does feel like you're just playing through like a big movie at the end of the day. I don't regret spending money on it. I had a blast playing through it. I'm probably going to get like all the achievements and stuff on it, just because I like to do that with games that I really enjoy, just try to complete them entirely. So I would say if you're still, if you're watching this video, you got a lot of it spoiled for you anyway, but if you're planning on playing it and you're waiting for a sale, that's totally okay. You should definitely still play it, whether it's on a sale or whether you buy it full price. A lot of people probably won't think that it's worth full price, which is, it is what it is. I totally get it. It's a weird dynamic, because a lot of people think games should probably have a lot more to them than what Mafia the Old Country has. But ultimately, I was very happy with the experience. I would probably give it maybe a solid 8, maybe 8.5 if I had to rate it like out of 10. Really good time, really fun. It's just the story was a bit more depressing than I wanted it to be. It was a bit more. I was really rooting for Enzo at the end, and I really wanted him to make it. And I was thinking that maybe he was going to be kind of like a tentpole in creating, which I guess he is, ultimately. But I thought him in person would be like a tentpole to creating the Mafia in Empire Bay and Lost Heaven, or at least a big hand in bringing it to America himself. But it seems like his child is going to be the one that is doing that. So whatever the kid ends up being, and I don't even know, and I don't even know if it's listed online anywhere, but I don't know if like maybe Enzo's kid is going to be like, oh, there's no way. I was thinking maybe he could be like Vito's parents or something, and maybe they change their name or something when they get to America so they can get away from the Teresi family. But even if that happened, I don't think the timeline would line up, because then that kid is just a baby in like 1907. And Vito is basically, well, I guess it's possible. He's basically like what, in his mid to late 20s or early 20s at the beginning of Mafia 2, and that could be in the 50s. It could work, is what I'm saying, is it could work. Maybe they change their name because they have to. Maybe Enzo's kid grows up, starts the Mafia, has Vito. I don't know, because at the same time, I don't know where Vito was born, and that's probably some pertinent lore that I need before I start yapping about my own personal like fan theories. But that's pretty much it. I really enjoyed it. I would love to hear from you guys if you guys have played it. I know my video last week was me kind of like halfway through the game playing it, and now that I've finished it and I've had some time to kind of like sit on it and think about it for a bit, I think ultimately I'm pretty happy with it. I just know that there's going to be a lot of folks out there, I mean, based on how the internet is, that are not going to be like super ecstatic. But I thought it was great. I'd love to know what you think. So please comment in the comment section down below. I'd love to talk to you about it. If you like what I do on this channel, feel free to hit like and subscribe. I try to be here every week with a game to talk about on Sundays, or depending on the Sunday, it might even be something in the gaming news, because I play a lot of games, but sometimes I don't play enough to keep up. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, thanks for watching this long if you have, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.